Hey, this is Mike with the Red Stapler podcast. I'm doing a follow-up podcast on the SpaceX IPO. I said previously that I think that around that time will be a market top. I think we're in a melt-up right now in the stock market, and I think we have a lot of catalysts coming forward that are going to drive prices up, like gasoline. I think like some essentials will skyrocket in price, but I think a lot of things that you don't really need will fall in price as demand drops, especially like the vehicle market, housing and stuff like that. But I think that a lot of these investors, these big investors, are trying to get exit liquidity by dumping all these big stocks that have been private for so long. I think they've been hiding how unprofitable they are, and these people have just kept doing funding rounds and funding rounds, and I think they're trying to push it with all this hype onto the common person to invest in, and they get their money, they get out, then the market crashes. That's truly what I believe will happen. I think as I said earlier, you've seen a lot of like Robinhood and some of these funds that have pushed IPOs or special funds that let you invest in some of these private companies. And there's always this sense that, oh, you're missing out on all this opportunity that they kept private. But there's a lot of funny stuff, it looks like, from because as these companies come public, sometimes they have to disclose their financials, and sometimes that can crater them before they even go public. A famous one was WeWork. WeWork had a lot of shady language in their, it's called an S1. It's what they put out when they go public, and WeWork was hyped as this huge, it was going to be a global co-working place, which is a crazy business because essentially what they were doing was just leasing office space from somebody else and then just charging more per head. I think the pandemic really did them in too, but there's no moat in that business model. They were trying, and what they tried to do as they started to go public, that we can kind of extrapolate to SpaceX, is they start hyping themselves as a tech company. And there might have been some tech elements to figure out who was how to manage the property and stuff like that, but all in all, essentially it's a real estate company. They didn't even own the actual building. They were having to pay a fixed cost in renting, and they were having to recoup that cost by subdividing the area they were renting up into smaller and smaller blocks that were higher valued. So if they didn't fill those spots, they couldn't pay their landlords. So with SpaceX, you're talking about, they're trying to hype this as a tech company now. If you think about it, it's a very capital heavy. Like, one of the benefits of being a tech company, especially like software companies, you have high margins, like 90% margins or something like that. You produce a piece of software and infinitely can reproduce it, and then you charge per person subscription, or a CD or whatever. It used to be CDs, per seat, whatever. And so there's not much cost beyond the initial development of it, and then you're just maintaining, kind of like making sure the software stays good. You're adding some new features. There's marketing, things like that. SpaceX, obviously a very capital heavy, a very expensive company to manage and to buy all the equipment for. You have to do lots of research and development. It has high capex, which is like all the materials you need to purchase, the fuel. I'm sure the kinds of people that work for a company like that, engineers, very expensive to pay. So traditionally, you would not consider that really a tech company, even though obviously there's technology in there. So it's been hyped up as like this is going to go public for like $2 trillion, which you think about how long it took major companies like Microsoft, Apple, various different companies, Google, to become $1 trillion companies. And those are companies that are very lightweight, not capital heavy, like in terms of they produce lots of software, except in Apple's case, and they charge a premium. And it's taken all these companies a long time to become $1 trillion companies. And obviously, I think it's easier and easier to become a $1 trillion company because of the devaluation of the dollar. But I think it'll be easier for us to have trillionaires someday because, if the currency is dropping by 90%, a millionaire isn't even a big deal anymore. A billionaire becomes like, previously millionaire, a trillionaire becomes your new billionaire. So it's, you start printing your money into oblivion. Like what used to be unachievable, if inflation adjusted, isn't that crazy. But $2 trillion to go public is crazy, and you're starting to hear all of these companies hyped up that they're going to go public at $1 trillion. OpenAI, Anthropic, who knows what other companies they're saying are going to be easily launching as $1 trillion companies. To put that in perspective, Saudi Aramco, I think, launched at $1 trillion, and that's like one of the biggest oil reserves in the world. So it's crazy what some of these companies are just coming out of the gate at. And I would want a company to be profitable if they're commanding that kind of money. But to the point, SpaceX, they're saying it generated $18.67 billion in revenue. That is just like what was coming in before, like expenses and what everything they're paying for. So in total, they had a net loss of almost $5 billion. So they have about 19 billion coming in, and all in all, they're losing about $5 billion. But $18 billion coming in, that doesn't even sound like that much comparatively. I would like to compare that to like Nvidia and some of these other companies. For a $2 trillion company that was pretty much marketed for the longest time as just like, this company is just like exploding with money. And most of that doesn't even come from, for the longest time, I thought they were getting a lot of money through their launches and work for the government. And that's actually a very small minority of what they get. Most of their money is coming from the satellite business that they have, Starlink. And I think that's a really cool business. Obviously you can have internet in really rural areas. I think they should double down on that. But it sounds like they are trying to find a way to really sell this thing for an insane amount of money. And they recently bought, Elon is known for doing some scammy kind of sleazy kind of things. When he had Tesla, he had another company that wasn't doing great called Solar Cities. He bought his own company to bail it out. There was a lot of conflict with that. I don't know if he got sued by shareholders or something like that. But like sitting there bailing out your own companies. So he has xAI, which is, I think, very unprofitable. And he just bought that with SpaceX, which is like kind of strange merger between these companies. I've even heard rumors that he might try to merge Tesla with SpaceX. I guess in my perspective, I'm like, if they're your companies, why can't you merge them together? But I think that is raising some eyebrows in the market for why he's doing these things. I think he's doing it because AI is the hot thing right now. He feels like he can command a lot higher price for a stock that has AI attached to it, because AI is just assumed to be an endless gold mine, like the golden goose for your company. If you can produce some sort of AI thing, you've had crazy stuff like Allbirds, which was just, I don't know, some shoe company that went under, and they changed their name to like Allbirds.ai or something, and became a meme stock because people were buying it. I don't know if they really thought that they were going to be a good AI company, or it was just just craze going on as a meme stock. But it mirrors the .coms, where you just throw a .com on, you'd get a lot more valuation. We've had that with marijuana stocks. Probably, I feel like there was lots of companies slapping marijuana things on. We've had that with crypto, and now it's AI. It's just like, what's the latest thing? So Starlink is the biggest part of their business right now. So I mean, infrastructure, that's a good thing. But that's going to become a kind of a commodity. Amazon's getting into that space. I'm sure there's other satellite companies trying to get into that, which leads to how much space junk we're going to have flying around and crashing back into Earth. I don't know like how that all is going to work out, but to me that sounds like a decent business. But he's not getting much revenue from the launch business of this. It says it's a minority share of the company, and the NASA contracts account for only 5% of current revenue. So it doesn't sound like there's much lucrative business beyond, and most of that money's coming from the satellite Starlink internet aspect. So now they're just spinning. It says since there's a big gap, in last year before they had the XAI added to the business, they were actually coming out at about $6.5 billion positive, and now they're $5 billion negative. So there's a big gap there, and they're being very heavily valued, way higher than most tech companies in the past. It says their price to sales, which is, so revenue is what you get before you pay for all the expenses, and then there's price to earnings, which is like once you paid for everything, what you're profiting. But just money coming in before you've spent it, they are 80 to 100 times price to sales, which is incredibly high. Like, I won't buy stocks really much over 10 price to sales. I prefer not to. A really good stock, I might buy 15, maybe 20, but not right now for sure. So now they're pivoting to this whole AI thing, and I think SpaceX is going to be a bellwether for a lot of these other companies that are going to be trying to make some really creative story to sell their public offering, to throw the bag onto just regular investors. So I think you're going to see so much more of this. You're going to probably see a flood of these kind of companies. Do I think it's going to happen just when SpaceX goes public? No. I think you're going to see SpaceX and all these other companies going public, and it's going to turn out that these companies aren't making near as much as people expected, and you pretty much have a market floating on hopium right now. And I think once those hopes are crushed, and people realize that these aren't as good of companies, I think the whole market is just kind of propped up on a lot of this crap. And I think that will be a very negative catalyst to start pulling the stock market down. And I think once stock market goes down, it'll lower people's wealth. I think a lot of people that are, obviously the top people. Most people are just living paycheck to paycheck. But I think a lot of the people investing in stocks, once maybe that, private equity, a lot of these other kind of Ponzi's and like things that are going to start pulling their wealth down, once I think the rich people start paying the price, or even the middle class, for a lot of these companies that aren't working out, and their real wealth starts to drop, that's what's really going to pull us into, I think we're already in recession, but I think that's what's going to like take the goggles, the rose-colored glasses off, and people are going to realize the situation for what it is and that it's not good. So I don't know when this will happen. My prediction is somewhere around the SpaceX IPO and a lot of the maybe OpenAI, Anthropic, and people just really kind of coming to terms with the reality of this and the hype wearing off, and realizing that the market really doesn't have anything else to cling to. Like, we wouldn't even have, I don't think we would have positive GDP if it wasn't for all this data center AI build out. And once that goes away, our economy, what is our economy propped up on right now? Like, future gambling markets and vape shops and nail salons. Like, I mean, I go around like my local town, I'm just like, what does our economy consist of? It's not much, it feels like, anymore. So prices are going up. There's just not a good narrative to sell once you lose the AI bubble. And so that's what I predict. Look forward to talking to y'all in the future. I think that's a good follow-up to kind of what I started talking about on the SpaceX IPO. Thanks.